Welcome to DevRoute. I am Myra and you are watching our CSS series. Today in this series we are going to cover basics of CSS grid layout features which allow you to create two-dimension layout on your web pages. As of March 2017, all your browsers support grid layouts. So let's have a look and dive in. So first thing first, we are going to talk about the difference between Flexbox and a grid. So Flexbox is basically a one dimension layout of your web page, and grid represent your web page in two dimensions. So this is a nice visual representation. So in Flexbox, we have some columns in aligned in rows, and in Grid we have rows and columns which give you two-dimensional representation. We can achieve this in Flexbox, but it required many HTML level changes as we discussed in our previous video. So let's dive into the coding session. So I am going to create a div with any class. I am naming it a wrapper class. You can name as you want. Inside this div, I am having two divs. Each div should contain some text. So I am using text of logarithm. Let it be 5 words only, not big. Logarithm 5. Okay, so this is what I have. I have two divs inside a main div, which is a I call a wrapper div. So let me apply some CSS. So I'm going to use an inline internal CSS. For that, I'm using a tag of style, and I'm making some changes. So you can see each of these divs more um, visualize, and you can see each of the you can identify the each of the boundaries of each of the divs. So let me have a class selector of a wrapper. In inside my wrapper, I am saying all my divs should have a background color. Let it be some grayish version. Let it be DDD. Okay, to separate it from the other one, to make these two different to each other, I am just using a wrapper class again as a selector, and I'm selecting all divs again, and I am using nth child to select the odd one. To select the odd one, I'm telling it should be odd one. Then I'm changing the background color again. I am setting the background color to some darker version. It should be some darker version, or okay, this one is fine. So you can see the difference. Okay, let it be more lighter one. Insist. So you can see now the difference between two divs. So these style changes have nothing to do with the grid. So let's start with the grid. I'm selecting a wrapper class as a selector again. Then I'm setting my display as grid. Oops, nothing has been changed because we have to set some width to have to our columns. For that, we need to use grid template columns. Grid template columns, we have to give width to each of them. So I'm giving 70% for the first one and 30% for the second one. Now you can see first grid is of 70% and second grid of 30%. Okay, so now let me apply some padding to it for more visible to you. I'm applying one REM padding. So these changes has nothing to do with, let me apply these padding inside the div. Okay. So these changes have nothing to do with the grid regarding padding, and the color has nothing to do with the grid. I done these changes because you can see the diff more clearly. So when we are working on div, we just set display as grid, and then we apply div template columns as 70 and 30%. So the first div will be the 70%, and the second div will be the 30%. So let's add some more divs to it. When we add more div to it, you can see each of our new div contains 70% and 30% size. If we want three divs in a one row, we could do that by applying changes these percentage as 50%, 30%, and 20%. You can set any of your choice. So these are 50%, 30%, and 20%. Okay. Now you can also use another unit for that, which is FR, which is friction, and I do recommend it because when we apply padding, it has some issues with padding. When we use a percentage, it has some issues with paddings and margins. So I do recommend frictions instead of percentage. Okay. So I give one friction to each div, so this give equal width to each div. If I want middle one to be double in size, what I can do, I can just change the middle one to 2 FR. So now my middle one is double in size. So let it be three same size. So I'm using 1 FR, 1 FR, and 1 FR. To repeatedly write 1 FR 3 times, you can use another thing which is called repeat. And you can say I want to repeat 3 times what I want to repeat. I want to repeat 1 FR. So it will give you the same result. If you want to repeat 1 FR, then 2 FR, then 1 FR, then 2 FR 3 times, then what you can do, you can simply write 1 FR space 2 FR. Okay. So let it be 1 FR 3 times. Now, if I want to add some space between these columns, what I can do, I can use another property which is called grid column gap. So I can apply some spacing, which could be 1 rem, for instance. So it will give the gap between your columns. If you want to apply some gaps between your rows, you can use it as grid row gap and 1 rem. So it gives you the gap between rows. If you have both same, which particularly you have rows and column gap same in size, so you can use grid dash gap and set it to 1 rem, and you can commit it out, so it will give you the same result. Another thing you can use it if you want to set some fixed height to your each grid, you can use a property called grid auto rows. So grid auto rows, inside grid auto rows, you have to define what length, what height you want. If, for example, I want 10 pixel height for each of my grid, or some 100 pixel height for each of my grid. It will look like a 100 pixel each grid height. It will have a fixed height. So if in case I have some more text inside my second one grid, let me use logarithm 80. So I have so much text inside my second grid. Let me just format my document. So all my text just come outside my div. So to cover this, we have to use min max property, which is like min max. First you need to tell what should be the minimum height. For my case, I'm having 100 pixel as a minimum height. Then you should tell what should be the maximum height. So I'm going to tell it should be auto. It will be auto depend on the content inside your div. So let's save it. So now you can see when I save this, the minimum height is 100. You can see over here the minimum height is 100 and the maximum height is auto, as our second div contains so many tags, so its height will set automatically. Okay. So for now we discuss about display grid, grid template columns, grid column gaps, grid draw gaps and grid gaps, grid auto rows. So in our next video, we will cover some more examples of grid. We will cover the two-dimension, how to create two-dimensional grid layout in our next video. So please stay tuned and follow, and don't forget to subscribe and like our channel. Thank you.